Good morning, students. How are you all? Today, we are going to study a poem by John Keats, which is an ode. And the poem is To Autumn. To Autumn by John Keats. And it is prescribed on the syllabus of BA second year pass course English Literature for Mohanlal Sukhadia University, Udaipur, Rajasthan. Let's first talk about John Keats. John Keats was born in 1795 and he died in 1821 at a very young and tender age. He was the youngest of the Romantic poets. There are three English poets are considered as younger Romantic poets, celebrated poets. There were other younger Romantic poets also, but these three, George Gordon Lord Byron, Percy Bysshe Shelley and John Keats, are considered as among the most celebrated three younger Romantic poets. Initially, he was trained to be a surgeon, but he did not have any interest in surgery for opting it as a career, and his main interest was in poetry and pursuing his poetic passion. And as he was from a poor family, so he could not receive university education, but he taught himself Latin and French. Keats did not have any knowledge of Greek language, but he had an intuitive understanding of it and grasp over Greek mythology. And the knowledge of Greek mythology he collected and gathered from various sources. His poetry is vividly pictorial and sensuous. This word is very important to understand Keats' poetry, sensuous, sensuous. There are two different words, sensual and sensuous. Sensual is related to sexual connotation and physical connotation, while sensuous it has an aesthetic meaning behind it, which is related to the five senses of human body: see, hear, feel, smell, touch, taste. So these are the see, hear, feel, taste, and touch. These are the five senses of human being, human body, human anatomy. So sensuousness is related to that. Whenever we see a flower, we can appreciate its beauty because we see it, and we can appreciate its smell because we have the sense of smelling things. So Keats' poetry is sensuous in that he is able to appreciate the beauty, the aesthetics of nature, the beauty of nature. But Keats' personal life is a tragic tale of disappointment and sorrow. He was born in a poor family, and he lost his father and mother at a very tender age. And in 1818, his long narrative poem, Endymion, was attacked by critics. But although it was praised by his friends, but it was attacked savagely by critics. And however, Keats was a man of great courage, and instead of being crushed by adverse criticism, he went on with his work with the idea of producing poetry that the world should not let die. And he also received a failure in his love affair with Fanny Brawne, and who did not respond to his love. And he also saw the death of his younger brother, who died of tuberculosis. And later Keats himself suffered from the same disease. It was a family disease with John Keats. So Keats suffered with tuberculosis, and in those days, tuberculosis was almost untreatable. And so he died at a very young age due to this disease. Now, the wretched circumstances of Keats' own life and his disease brought about a breakdown in his health, and he felt very depressed and downcast. And in September 1820, accompanied by his friend Joseph Savern, he left England for Italy in order to improve his health, because in Italy, the climate was warmer in comparison to England. So at Lulworth, he wrote his last sonnet, Bright Star, in which he wrote, Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art. And very soon after that, he died in Rome on February 23rd, 1821, at the age of just 25. And he was buried in the Protestant cemetery over there, and conscious to the last. He was very conscious about his poetic talent. He was conscious of his poetic talent, and he wanted to attain name and fame in his life through his poetry. But the wretched circumstances of his life and the disease he was suffering with, tuberculosis, they did not allow him to live longer, and he died. And his dream of achieving some kind of status in poetry was left unachieved, and he chose his own epitaph before dying, which is written on his grave, Here lies one whose name is written water. It means that writing somebody's name in water is very difficult. You cannot write anything on water. The meaning is here that he tried to do the impossible task in his life. He tried to fight with the adverse circumstances and conditions of his life, and he tried to name his right in water, and he has written his name in water. Keats was sure of his success as a poet, that he knew, he had some kind of intuition that even after death his poetry will be read, and he has left his mark as a poet. So he was one of the most germinal poets and left a deep mark on English literature. And it is said, if Keats had lived longer, he would have excelled Shakespeare. He would have achieved the cadre of Shakespeare. Because just like William Shakespeare, we find a profound understanding of human nature is reflected in his poetry. And his major poetic works are poems which came out in 1817, then Endymion in 1818, and Lamia, Isabella, The Eve of St. Agnes, and other poems came out in 1820. And then there are some sonnets which he wrote and other poems. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. This is the principle of Keats' aesthetics. It is a very famous line from Endymion written by Keats, and Keats is well known for his highly refined aesthetic sense in poetry. His poetry is known for aesthetics, for sensuousness, for an appreciation, for an objective appreciation of nature. And also his poetry is very sensuous. His poetry gives pleasure to all our five senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Truth, beauty, and transience of human life, and that of beauty. He talks about these things in poetry. He talks about truth, about beauty, the idea of beauty, the idea of truth, and the transience of human life, and that of beauty, that human life is transient, it is ephemeral, it is short-lived, and it is restricted by time and place. And such is the thing with beauty. Beauty is also not forever. Beauty does not last long. These are among the major themes of his poetry. And his great odes are Ode on a Grecian Urn, Ode to a Nightingale, Ode on Melancholy, to Autumn are the immortal creations of English literature, which almost every student of English literature reads once in his life, at least once in his life. Now let's talk about the poem To Autumn. Autumn, as we can see in these pictures, is a season when leaves get dried and the trees shed their leaves. The leaves also get dried, but it is also a season when fruits are ripened and they are mellowed. Now, this poem was written by Keats in September 1819, and Keats was so impressed by the beauty of the weather that he recorded his mood in the form of this ode. And To Autumn ranks among the finest poems of Keats. The treatment of the subject is perfectly objective and impersonal. The poet keeps himself completely out of the picture. What is meant to say here is that Keats has very objectively treated nature, an aspect of nature, in his poem, in his ode. He has simply recorded the scenes, the scenery, the sounds, the sight of autumn, what things are perceived in autumn, what things are heard in autumn, and what activities are carried out during the autumn season. So it is a perfect nature lyric. Now let's read the poem and appreciate it. Let's talk about some difficult words or particular words used by Keats in this poem. Mists means fog, which is usually perceivable during winter season. Mellow fruitfulness means when fruits ripen, when fruit ripens and softens, when it becomes eatable, chewable, eatable. Bosom friend means a very close friend. Maturing sun means the sun's light and heat ripen fruit. Without sun's light and heat, fruit cannot ripen. So it is the autumn season, it is during autumn seasons that many fruit, they get ripened and they get mellowed. They become mellow and soft. Wine means a climbing plant that produces grapes, from which wine, W-I-N-E, wine, that drink is made. Thatch eaves means lower edges of a roof made of dried straw reeds. In villages, in English villages, and in English rural area, many houses are made of straw. It was a time in that century, during the 19th century and before that, houses were made of, that their roofs were made of dried straw, grass, reeds, etc. And the outer part of those roofs were called thatch eaves, which stick out over the walls. Most cottage trees means trees, very old trees or old trees near small houses in villages, which are covered with moss, green moss, algae, which is called. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to band with apples the mossed cottage trees and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. The poet here says that autumn is a season of mists when we can see fog, and mellow fruitfulness when we can see fruit mellowing and becoming ripe. Close bosom friend of the maturing sun, autumn is the close friend of sun, and together they conspire how to load and bless with fruit the vines, those creepers which run round the thatch eaves. And together, autumn and sun, they conspire, they plan it, that how to load the cottage trees, most cottage trees, with apples. They are filled with apples during the autumn season, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. And how to fill with ripeness, how to ripen all fruit, all kinds of fruits, how to ripen them, how to soften them, how to make them eatable. So, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to band with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. In this stanza, the poet has described the bounty of autumn, the gifts of autumn. Autumn is the season of mists. It is a season during which different kinds of fruit ripen, and it seems that autumn actively cooperates with the sun in bringing about the maturity to the fruits. Thus, autumn and the sun work together for the ripening of all kinds of fruit. The vines running round the edges of thatched roofs become loaded with grapes during autumn, and the branches of the apple trees are bowed nearly to the ground with the weight of apples. The apple trees growing in the cottage gardens are covered with moss and are weighed down with fruit, and all fruit is filled with sweetness through and through. Gourd. Gourd means large fruit with hard outer skin and soft inner flesh. Hazel shells. Hazel is a kind of dry fruit. It's a kind of small brown nut, which is usually found in Europe and Western countries. Budding means developing, growing. Cease means close, to stop something, or if something stops, it ceases. Overbrimmed means filled to the brim and flowing down. For example, when we pour tea into a cup, so there's an extent to which the cup can contain the tea, the amount of tea. And after that amount, the tea or water, whatever it is, it starts flowing down from the cup. So this is called, then we say that the cup is now full to the brim. Now no more tea or water can be added, can be contained in this cup. So overbrimmed means filled to the brim and flowing down. Clammy cells means sticky cells of beehive, hive. You must have seen a hive of honeybees, and its cells are clammy. They are sticky. If you touch it, you will feel the stickiness of honey. To swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees. until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. All fruit is filled with sweetness through and through. The gourd grows bigger and bigger, and the hazelnuts are filled with a sweet kernel. Certain flowers also bloom in autumn, and the bees suck the sweetness of these flowers. To the bees, it seems that these flowers represent a continuation of summers. Bees think that these flowers will never end because they had flowers during the spring season, and then again in summer there were flowers for the bees to suck to suck the sweetness of those flowers. And again after the summer season, even in autumn, some flowers bloom. So now the bees, honeybees, they think that flowers, they are continually getting flowers, new and new flowers, and they think that warm days will never end. To them, it is the summer season still continuing. So they do not have this idea that now summer has ended and autumn has arrived, autumn has come. To them, it is the summer season which is still continuing. So the summer season has been extended and it has merged with autumn season. So the bees suck the sweetness of these flowers. To the bees, it seems that these flowers represent a continuation of nature, continuation of summer. For the bees, therefore, the warm days of summer have not ended. And the sticky cells of the honeycombs are filled to overflowing with honey, and yet autumn provides more flowers in case the bees may like to draw more sweetness from them. Now, in the second stanza, there are 4 images. And Keats here has personified autumn season, into a reaper, winnower, gleaner, and cider presser. These are the activities during the autumn season which are performed by different kinds of people, farmers, and all people relating to farming and gardening and all these kinds of activities, agricultural activities. The poet here draws pictures from agricultural activities, and he tells us what kinds of activities are performed in English villages, in European villages during autumn season. Granary. Granary is a building for storing grain. Winnowing wind. Winnowing wind means winnowing is the process of removing the chaff from grain by tossing it. And the wind produced in this process is called winnowing wind, has been called winnowing wind by the poet. And furrow, F-U-R-R-O-W. Furrow means these are the trenches. These are the trenches made by farmers for planting seeds, in which they plant seeds. These are the divisions made into the ground, in the soil, and farmers, they plant seeds in those trenches. Fume of poppies. Poppies are the flowers of opium, and their smell is very intoxicating. It is very strong and intoxicating. And wherever poppy flowers are planted, poppy plants are planted, and if the sun is very strong, if the heat and light of sun is very strong, its fume its natural fume of flowers, the natural smell of flowers, can be felt by the people who are around those fields, who sit around those fields where poppy plants are. Swath. Swath means long strip of land, a long strip of land from which plant or crop has been cut from the, there is a spelling mistake here, from, from which plant or crop has been cut. Twined flowers means twisted strands of a bunch of flowers, crop, etc., which the farmer cuts, which the cropper cuts with his sickle, with his scythe, SCYTHE, scythe. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor. Thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And all its twined flowers. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? The poet here personifies autumn into a reaper. He says that autumn is the reaper. Autumn is that during the autumn season, farmers, reapers, they reap the crop, because the crop has been matured. It has been matured, and now it is the time of reaping the crop. So this stanza describes the occupations of autumn. Autumn is here personified as a winnower. First, after cutting the crop, it is cleaned. The chaff from the grain is separated by the process of winnowing as a reaper, and as a gleaner, and as a cider presser. These are the various activities which are performed during the autumn season. Autumn is here seen as a woman who performs the tasks of winnowing, reaping, and gleaning and cider pressing. If anyone wants to see autumn, he may go into the fields and he will see the women engaged in the winnowing operations while the breeze ruffles their locks of hair. This is one picture of autumn. Secondly, we may see autumn in the shape of a reaper who has been engaged in reaping corn, but who in the course of her work is so overcome by the sleep-inducing smell of poppies that she falls asleep, with the result that the next row of corn remains unreaped. Thirdly, autumn may be seen in the character of a gleaner. Gleaner means crop gatherer. Brook. Brook is a small stream, a small water body. Cider press means cider pressing, the activity of squeezing the juice from apples. Cider press was an old kind of machine during the 19th century and before that, from which manually the juice of apples was squeezed and other fruits was squeezed. Last oozings means the last drops of, after all the juice has been drawn from the fruit. So the last drops which fall down into the vessel, drop by drop from the machine, they are called last oozings. And sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy leaden head across a brook, or by a cider press with a patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. It is also pronounced as hours. So in that sense we can pronounce it like this: thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Here, the idea expressed by the poet here is that uh, that autumn may be seen in the character of a gleaner who is walking along steadily with the weight of grains upon her head, crossing a stream. And finally, autumn may be seen in the figure of a woman who is crushing the ripe apples in the wooden press to obtain their juice, from which cider is to be made. And this woman sits by the cider press and watches patiently the apple juice flowing out of the press drop by drop. So here is a picture of patience, of watching the activity of the juice coming out of the machine and falling down into the vessel, and watching it drop by drop falling down. So the same thing can be said about life. It is a kind of meditation that sometimes we are in such a reflective mood that we watch life, we watch the time flowing down, passing by, the time getting away. So it is a kind of soothing experience. It is a kind of experience which makes us very steady, meditative, reflective. And we can see life, we can observe life, that these are the ways of life, these are the ways of human life, that how things come into our life and how they go away from us. So here is that perfection which the poet, here is that longevity which the poet strives for, that how to extend the ephemeral life, how to extend the life which is receding moment by moment, how to extend it, how to enjoy it, how to watch it passing. Spring. Spring means the spring season. Barred clouds. Clouds means reflecting the sun's light in the form of bars. You might have experienced at least once in your life that during a certain kind of climate, a certain kind of atmosphere in the evening, especially in during autumn season, that the evening appears reddish, having the red color, having the red hue, and it seems with a pink shade, in red shade. And there are clouds in the sky, and the light of clouds is reflected through those clouds, and it comes down to the earth through those clouds, making a shape of bars, of straight bars. So that picture has been captured by John Keats here. Barred clouds means cloud reflecting the sun's light in the form of bars. Soft dying day means slowly closing day, the day coming to its closure when the sun sets. So the day dies softly. Stubble plains. Stubble plains means fields which appear as being trimmed, like beard is trimmed by a trimmer, by a trimming machine. So fields also appear as being trimmed after the crop has been cut. Rosy hue means that hue, that color in the evening, that color of the evening. When the scene of evening appears rose colored, red colored, the scene of evening during autumn appearing rose colored. Now, this is the picture of barred clouds. What is meant by barred clouds? This might be one picture, and which you might have actually experienced in your life could be different from it. Where are the songs of spring? Eh, where are they? Where are the songs of spring? Eh, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. Thou means you. Thy means you. Thy hast thy music too. Again, thy has been used, which is for your. Thy hast thy music too. Here is a spelling mistake in the text, and I apologize for it, and I request you to please correct it. The word here is thou, Thou, thou. Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. Thou means you, and thy, thy, it means your. These are two archaic words. Archaic words means words from Old English. For you and your, these two words were used, thou, thou, and thy, thy. Where are the songs of spring? Eh, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. And in a wailful choir, small gnats mourn among the river shallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft, the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Wailful choir. Here it means a group of certain insects which produce noise and sounds in evening. Here is a grammatical mistake. Please correct it. Insects which produce noise and sounds in evening. Their sounds are imagined as sad and melancholic. Gnats means small insects. And river shallows means trees and shrubs near rivers. And borne aloft means carried upward, an upward movement. And in a wailful choir, small gnats mourn among the river shallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. Full-grown lambs means young lambs which are growing, which have grown, and hilly born, boundaries of a hill, mountains. Hedge crickets. Crickets are insects usually found among shrubs. Treble soft means sharp, shrill, but low voice or sharp voice gradually receding into softness or sounding soft despite shrillness. So that is treble soft. The music produced by the bird redbreast is shrill. It's very sharp, but despite its shrillness and sharpness, it sounds soft or melodious. Soft here means melodious. It sounds melodious despite its sharpness and shrillness. Redbreast is a kind of bird, and garden croft is a small ground or plot or an empty space with a house used as a kitchen, garden, or for plantation. An empty space or a ground near a house in a village, which is used as a kitchen garden, or it is used for plantation, for planting trees of various fruit. And full-grown lambs bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Now, in the third stanza, the poet describes the occupations of autumn. In the second stanza, the poet describes the occupations of autumn, while in the third stanza, autumn is here contrasted with spring season. Usually it is spring season, which is seen in a very positive note. But autumn, the poet here says that autumn is also a season which gives us fruits, which gives us melodious sounds and melodious sights, and wonderful sights, as well as it also gives us various kinds of things like food, grain, and various crops. So spring is distinguished by its sweet songs of birds. Autumn does not possess those songs, but there is no need to feel any regret on that account. So this is the idea of the third stanza. The poet says in this stanza that he describes the sounds of autumn. Spring is distinguished by its songs. These sweet songs are not heard in autumn, but there is no need to feel any regret on that account. Autumn has its own peculiar music. The sounds of autumn are heard in the evenings when the sun is setting and a soft glow radiates the fields from which the crop has been reaped, leaving the stumps behind. The long drawn out clouds in the sky look like the bars of a grate, and at this time the melancholy buzzing of the gnats is heard. The gnats fly about among the shrubs growing on the river side, and the gnats are carried upward when the wind is strong, and they come downwards when the wind is feeble. And in addition to that, the gnats singing in a melancholy chorus, the bleating of full-grown lambs is heard from the hills which bound the landscape. Then there is the chirping of the grasshoppers. Next comes in the high, bold, and delicate singing of the redbreast, which sings from an orchard. And finally, there is the twittering of the swallows, which are gathering in large numbers to get ready for their winter migration. So, in the third stanza, the poet has described various kinds of sounds during the autumn season. The music of autumn, which has been called the music of autumn. If spring has its songs, then autumn too has its songs, and so there is nothing to worry about in life. What the poet here wants to say, which is perceivable in the last line, and gathering swallows twitter in the sky, it ends on a very positive note. This poem ends on a very positive note. The poet here says that if there are pains and griefs and sorrows in life, then there are also moments of joy and enjoyment, of joy, of happiness. Gathering swallows twitter in the sky, it means that the migratory birds which come from Europe to Asia, they migrate when there is winter, when it's very cold over there in Europe. They travel to Asia and Asian countries, come to South Asian countries. But when the spring is, when the autumn, when the winter season is over there in Europe and spring comes, then the same migratory birds, they travel back to Europe. The poet here says that if the birds are going away, they will come back again. So there is nothing to worry about that. So we should not have any regrets and any sorrows in our life. If we are losing some things in our life, we will get many other things in our life. So we should take life as life is. We should accept life. So there is a note of acceptance at the end of the poem. So Keats here accepts the course of life as it is. Life is a mingling of joys and sorrows. Life is a mingling of various kinds of experiences. So a man should not have any regrets about life. He or she should accept life as it is. So this is to autumn, a very wonderful ode, a very wonderful poem written by John Keats. And here are some questions which you can prepare. These are essay type questions. So I thank you all. Thank you for listening and watching the video. I hope you got the point. Thank you.